Since I wasn't able to get the mid-year update streamed yesterday, this is a recording of the same presentation for anyone who wasn't able to be here, would like to hear it again, or otherwise would like it. I'll reiterate what I said yesterday, that I view my job in kind of these updates and such as not fundraising, not trying to make people do things, but just to make sure you know what's going on in the parish. Know where our finances are, know where the buildings and grounds are, and know where we're doing and what's going on. So this is, back here, an overview of our numbers so far. So you can see we've got, in the first half of the year, despite kind of a harsh winter and being towards the end of summer, about an 80 people in person and 8 online for average Sunday attendance. That is significantly greater than 2 years ago when our average Sunday attendance was 65. Still greater than a year ago when it was 76, but we're slightly less, this is slightly lower than last year's end of year numbers, which was 84. But still higher than the year before that, which was 76, and greater than the year before that, which was 65. Our midweek services, our midweek Eucharist, which include all of the special services like Ash Wednesday, Good Friday, Ascension Sunday, Epiphany, our average attendance about that is around 10. And our average attendance on our online daily office services of variety of sorts, but mainly Wednesday and Thursday, is about 3. This year we've had 10 funerals so far, 4 baptisms. 2 of those were adults and 2 of those were kids. 3 people who were confirmed or received into the Episcopal Church, and 2 weddings. The next slide, I'm not going to take the time to go into all of this, but this is just an idea of the stuff I get up to in a week. So things like pastoral visits, pastoral counseling, sermon prep, worship planning, all of those kind of worship-related things, as well as some administrative stuff, some Christian formation work, and where it's needed, some buildings and grounds work, and coordinating with your lay leaders. So again, the main reason I want us to do this is I want everyone to have the opportunity to be up to date on where our parish is and what is happening. The other reason we're doing this is to give you all the opportunity for feedback. This is your church, and the direction you want it to go in is important to me. So in terms of, I've framed this presentation in kind of gifts and challenges. One of the main gifts we've had this year in particular is our fellowship and events committee is up to date. Now that's a group that was formed officially right after I arrived here. And they've been holding an event just about every month. The only exception will be August. They've been holding fellowship events every month. That includes the Rector's Garden Party last month, the parish picnic, taco night, and all of those other things. And we've been averaging about 40 to 50 people at all of those events. One of the main goals of those events is we have these 3 services that don't interact all that much. So one of the hopes is to give spaces in our worship life, but also in just our life in general, where people from all 3 services can get to know each other, because we are one congregation, we are one people. And so one of the heartening things about these dinners is seeing people who have been at this church for 20, 30 years, but go to different services and don't know each other, coming together and getting to know one another and sharing their love for all of the things they love, including Emmanuel. Another one of our gifts has been youth participation. The youth last year led the Christmas pageant. They have written prayers of the people for Christmas and Youth Sunday. And recently, within this 6-month period, we had Youth Sunday, where we had a youth preacher who did an excellent job. Our middle and high school Sunday school class read all of the lessons and the prayers of the people, which again they had written. And they've also been doing service work in terms of packing gift boxes at Christmas time. The last thing I'll mention is we have had, at the end of our Episcopal 101 class, or our confirmation class for adults, but it's open to anyone who just wants to know more about the Episcopal Church. We had 2 adults confirmed in the Episcopal Church, and 1 adult received into the Episcopal Church. We added an Ash Wednesday service at 7 a.m. for those who want to receive their ashes on their way to work. We held a service for every day of Holy Week, although I'm cheating a little bit there because I'm including our Tuesday Healing Eucharist as one of those services. And this includes what was surprisingly well attended, Tenebrae, which we offered for the first time in a while, which is a special evening prayer service for Wednesday night in Holy Week. We also had services for Epiphany and Ascension Sunday. Ascension Sunday, we had the services in the loft. That one I don't know if we'll do again, or if I'll encourage us all to go see our brothers and sisters at Ascension, at Church of the Ascension for their feast day. We shall see. So that brings us to our challenges. The first main challenge is we have a lot of deferred maintenance on all of our buildings that has not been taken care of. And so that comes with immediate things that we're working on repairing and fixing right now, and things that we're looking to in the future. Trago House over the past year has had 2 major pipe leaks, one of them very significant, which was really a pipe burst. This is mainly because where our pipes are located in Trago House is exposed to the elements. So one of the things we've been looking into to prevent this in the future is getting the pipes wrapped with insulation. There are 3 kind of ongoing pressing projects that are going on. One is, as we finish the renovation of the rectory, is air conditioning for the rectory. Currently there are 2 very old window units that don't really cool down the house, particularly speaking the bedroom, and it can get quite hot in there. That's been temporarily fixed by a combination of donations of mobile AC units that on most days can kind of handle it without too much problem. But on the hottest days are really just kind of mitigating the problem. So AC, that is a major project and will also require rewiring and bringing the rectory's electrical up to code. Because currently the electrical grid, the electrical system for the rectory is outdated and won't meet modern code requirements. The next thing we're working on is the damage to the front altar wall of the church. If you go into the church, you'll find that in the front there is a long series of cracks in the plaster on both sides of the main stained glass window. That is from 2 leaks, one that is up in the roof, kind of where the roof and the wall join, and one we think is right around where the window and the wall join. Those have let in water, which have kind of destroyed the plaster. So kind of the minor part of that job is fixing up the leaks and making sure that it doesn't happen again. And then there will be major work in kind of just replastering the entire wall. That will be a major project that will likely involve setting up scaffolding for a number of weeks. And the last major project is replacing the shed that is right outside the office. It's at the point where it's falling apart and probably not safe to be in. And so we're working at alternatives for that, but the shed is kind of taking, in the vestry's estimation, third priority over kind of taking care of the heating, taking care of the cooling situation in the rectory, and repairing the major damage to the altar wall. Long term, we're going to need to look at how to accomplish some major maintenance items that have been deferred. At some point in the next 5 to 10 years, the main sanctuary will need to be repointed, which means having stonemasons come in and touch up the mortar on it so that it no longer leaks water. The parish hall could use new siding, and also the parish hall does not have insulation, which does not help our electric bill, which has been skyrocketing. And it's also just not good for the environment, not good for helping maintain the parish hall at a reasonable temperature. And so it will need to be resided, and when you reside, you can just put the insulation in the siding. There are also concerns around our handicap accessibility. The church did major work recently in terms of adding in a handicap ramp that goes makes the sanctuary accessible to handicapped parishioners. There is no bathroom up on this level that is connected with that ramp. The only bathrooms are down in the parish hall, and there is not a convenient way for a handicapped person to get from the parish hall to the sanctuary and vice versa. The only thing they can do is go outside down the ramp and all the way around the church to the handicap entrance to the parish hall, which is basically diagonally on the far side of the campus. So one of the things we're investigating and talking about is how do we include some more handicap accessibility. The last thing I'll mention here, that is probably the most dangerous of these future needs, is some years ago we had some very old piping that takes care of our sewage replaced, about 2/3 of it replaced after a major sewage leak. That piping is well beyond its service life. That piping is well beyond modern standards, and at some point it is going to implode. So one of the hopes in our long-term financial planning and our long-term maintenance planning is going ahead and preemptively fixing that piping before it becomes a problem rather than after. So that's kind of a summary of our building plans. The buildings are all stable, but they're going to need a lot of maintenance to prep them for the next generation. Our last big challenge has been budget. Like everyone, our budget expenses have been increasing throughout this year and for the last couple of years. And despite a significant growth in our parish, our revenue has fallen by about 20%. So this year, despite already projecting to be running a deficit of around 20,000, we're actually running a deficit around 40,000. Now that normally goes down as we enter the last quarter of the year. That's when giving increases, but it is significant. And we don't have a large enough endowment to run those kind of deficits year upon year. So what you'll see here is just a rough breakdown of our spending according to ministry area. Our ministry areas are fellowship, education, outreach, and worship. You can see outreach is a very large proportion of our ministry breakdown. Some of that is the best place to put our diocesan assessment in terms of where it goes is within outreach. And this includes kind of the staff and administrative stuff that supports these ministries as well. The next thing I'll point out to budget is this is our budget broken down by the type of things we have. Our biggest expense as a church is payroll. Payroll is about 53% of our church budget. That is our clergy and staff, so that is me as your rector, my benefits and my compensation and benefits, and then also includes our director of Christian education and our organist and choir master. I will point out here that I make the diocesan minimum as a clergy person, and we have been probably significantly underpaying both our organist and our director of Christian education coordinator. About 31% of our budget expenses relate to maintaining our facilities and our buildings. So that's the main sanctuary, the parish hall, the office, the rectory, Trago House. It is the utility bills and the maintenance costs for those buildings. About 4% of our expenses are administrative. So think, our phone line, those kind of costs. And then only about 12% of our budget is kind of what I'm going to call a discretionary budget. This is where money that is spent within our ministry areas for supplies and work. Now I will point out here, for things like education on the back side, having a Christian education coordinator is a significant help to that ministry. It's part of staff costs and not part of this expense. Because you can't really reduce staff costs without letting someone go or switching to a part-time rector. So where we're going to go from here is, in order to kind of sort out the budget and sort out our facilities, the first thing we need to know is what we want to be doing as a church for the next 5 years. What ministries are important to us? And that'll dictate how we approach the budget, and how we approach the buildings, quite honestly. So you have been asked for feedback on that over the summer, to what you think is important for the church going forward. The vestry is going to take that feedback, discuss, and come up with a strategic plan that has goals and priorities. The other two things the vestry will do is come up with a long-range financial plan that will help us navigate kind of the budgetary challenges we have as a church. And also we have a property committee. I say that because it's not actually an official committee, but it's myself, Dave McGraw, Ed Yoakum, your junior warden, and Tim Wayberg, and I'll actually add Brent into there. The people who do a lot of the behind-the-scenes maintenance work, to build an idea of what are all the things we need to do. What is all the work that absolutely needs to be done, and what are the things we would want to do to our buildings, right? So there are things we might say, we might want handicap accessibility. We probably also very much need structural repairs. So it is you in providing us feedback. You're welcome to talk to myself, your senior warden, or any of your vestry members about your feedback. The vestry, as the leadership body of this church, is setting the vision and setting guidelines for this process going forward. You have the people working on facilities who are letting us know what the needs are, and how critical our needs are. And you have the budget committee, which will be established by the vestry in August, which will develop the long-range plan for our finances that the vestry will approve. So that's all I have for you. I'll make these slides available in some form or fashion. The short and the long, the short of our church is a lot of great ministry is happening. The church is growing. The church is significantly larger than it was 2 or 3 years ago. The church has vibrant ministry happening in outreach, in our outreach, in our children and youth, in our worship life. All of those are great and wonderful things. And maintaining our facilities and finding the resources we need to pay for those ministries is going to be our challenge going forward. We'll have a stewardship committee appointed this year to help lead the church's fundraising efforts. As I said, as your rector, I don't see how much you pledge, and so I'm not a great leader for fundraising, but I will keep you updated. And we have some very strong lay leaders who have volunteered to serve on stewardship committee, and I very much appreciate them because it's everyone's least favorite committee to be on. And that would be Katie Dallum, your senior warden, Steve Bareford, a member of the vestry, Tianja Jung, also another member of the vestry, Emily Fleming, who is our parish register, has also volunteered to serve on that committee, as well as Sandy Heathcott. And they are going through kind of getting diocesan support for how to run stewardship well and effectively in a way that does not demand what we need, that does not make people uncomfortable, but also is effective. That is where we are as a parish. There is a lot to be grateful for. And there are 1 or 2 challenges that we're going to need to meet in the years to come. I think we can meet them, but they are challenges. Thank you all for joining me for this kind of rough recording of the rector's update. I hope all is well with you, and God bless.